So when people are considering solar for their home, as a real estate agent, it actually, to be honest, it's not a plus. On average, it's a negative.
Okay.
And I hate to say that out loud. On average, no one's going to give you $5 more for your home because you have solar. However, I believe what you're offering is likely to have less maintenance, likely to have less wear and tear, and likely to outlive whoever is about to purchase it. The combination, and you don't have to deal with the install. It's all done for you, and you just, instead of spending $500 a month, now you're going to have $250 a month or $200 a month. Hello and welcome everyone. This is Matt Rhine. I'm your host, and all roads lead to real estate. And I have another episode here that I'm excited to talk about because it's something that's organic. It's natural in terms of my progression of knowledge that I had. And so I've met my guest who is with me today. His name is Justin Coleman. And Justin, first off, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you once again. And so I twisted his arm and got him in here because I wanted to learn more about how to reduce my historic, old, big homes energy bill here. It's outrageous. I've complained to anyone who's in earshot of me over the last 5 years of living in that home. I love the home, but it is a consumer of energy like crazy. And I know I'm not alone because the bills, we're here in the Baltimore area, so BGE is our gas and electric supplier, and the bills have not gotten lower lately for all of us in terms of what we're expecting. In fact, we're getting notices now to notify us again that, hey, by the way, bills are going to have a sharp increase again. This winter. So I don't know. Have you received that notice?
Yeah, well, I have. I live in Baltimore City as well. So it's an ongoing battle. And that's part of, I know why you brought me out and talk about geothermal, try to reduce those bills, also help out the environment a little bit. But yeah, that's kind of where we are this day in the world. And we're trying to do everything we can to make it a little bit better and help the consumer save some money.
Well, so if you're interested in saving some money, you might want to listen to this because, I've been doing real estate going on almost 20 years now. And the number of times I've ran into an inspection, let's call it, on a home that I was selling that had what we're about to discuss today, it's low. Like this is not something that's super common, and I think most people, I'm assuming, right? Many of my clients don't understand it, and to be quite frank, I didn't fully understand it until you and I had a long discussion, and I had you out. But the topic, guys, is geothermal HVAC.
Correct.
And so if you've ever Googled it, or if you've ever tried to look into ways to save money on your own energy bill or to lower your consumption of energy, right? So to just be more green.
Correct.
This is a company you need to know about. So Justin is with a company called Ground Loop Heating and Air, and he just went through and told me a little bit about the history of the company right before we jumped on. But it's an 80-year-old business, roughly, third generation. It's based here in Maryland in Harford County.
Yep.
And so I just want to get into all of that. But first off, if you've never fully understood what this is, or if you want to potentially upgrade your current HVAC system and you just want to get the standard stuff, you do those as well, right? Just your normal gas, your normal electric heat pump.
Yeah, absolutely. And to not bore people with this, but how your traditional system works, you have gas, you have oil, you're burning those propane, or you have a conventional heat pump or an air conditioning, which is using outside air temperature to bring that in through refrigeration cycle, cooling it down, heating it up. Obviously, when you're taking those outside air temperatures over 100 degrees, below 30 degrees, you're trying to heat that up or cool that down. It's almost in reverse the way the concept is.
Right.
So it's using a lot of energy. Obviously, the burning of gas, oil, those things are not good. Geothermal pretty much eliminates all of that by using the ground to do the majority of the work.
So let's break it. Let's start right there, because I think even just discussing this with my wife, just stopping and going, well, what is it specifically?
Sure.
Because that's a challenge. I think, I'm assuming, right, you're also in sales. I say, is that a third of your job is making sure people are educated because they have to understand the value in what you're presenting?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's probably a third of explaining it.
Right.
The other third is managing expectations because it is a big project.
Sure.
Compared to your property and inside the house, et cetera. That shouldn't scare you off. It's simple, but there's a lot of moving parts.
Right.
So yeah, in terms of how it works is basically when you hear geothermal, first thing that comes to mind is the ground.
Right.
That's what people are thinking about, and that's exactly right. The easy way to explain it is we're just moving heat around. We're taking the air in your house and we're kind of moving it out to the ground. We're pulling heat from the ground in the wintertime. We're putting heat into the ground in the summertime. And that ground is a constant 50 to 60 degrees all year round. We go down deep enough. So then the refrigeration cycle can take that 50 to 60 degrees, heat it up, cool it down. And that's what makes it so much more viable than a conventional air source heat pump.
And let's just think about it in best case scenario. Best case, what kind of percent savings if you install this? Is it 70%? I think that's what you floated with me. Like best case scenario, 70 or even 80% sometimes.
Yeah,
reduction in energy cost.
Yeah, typically I'd say anywhere from as low as 50%, but that's probably the lowest you're going to see. As high as 80% in some cases. Each house obviously is different, as you well know.
Oh yeah.
A lot depends on insulation, air sealing. Some people, talk about, and I don't want to get off on a tangent, gas, oil, better heat. It's not a geothermal problem. It's usually a housing problem, as we talked about a little bit with your house, and those types of things.
Well, and I want to also preface it that I'll give you some credit here. You're here because I think I trusted you through the process, either meeting me at my own home. You obviously you're in the position to sell a product. However, you looked at what I had going on with multiple heating and cooling systems, an old home. It's not connected properly. Everything's mismatched, and it's been worked on over the years, over all different generations. And you really said I'm probably not a great candidate for this.
Yeah, I always say this, and you may remember I treat every home like it's my home, my friends and family's home, and it has to be viable. It is viable in most places, in most cases, most houses. Your house, as we know, is difficult with all those different systems. And when does the price start to get to the point of, wow, this isn't really fixing a problem? It's helping, but is it worth it at that point?
So let's go back. So first off, that gave you tremendous credit in my eyes to be honest and truthful with me.
Appreciate it.
And so, but I have other folks that certainly would be good candidates. Mm-hmm. And I want to first off, before we get into geo, explain to people what a traditional gas, a gas-fired furnace or a heat pump electric.
Sure.
Go into those two just briefly, and then let's compare what that's, how those work compared to the geothermal option.
Sure. Single family home, is typical. You have some sort of system in the basement. It could be a gas furnace, oil furnace. You could have just a conventional heat pump, or the furnace with the AC with the outside unit, which everybody always calls it. I try to speak in, as layman terms as I can, just to make sure people know what I'm talking about. So that is typically your conventional system. It's heating and cooling, and it's doing the whole house. There's ductwork throughout the whole house. So that is type A. That's what we want in terms of geothermal. That is number one. That's very simple. It's a replacement. We replace the indoor and outdoor unit. There is no outdoor unit with geothermal, and it just takes the place of your current system, and it's about the same footprint.
Interesting. Okay.
There's different variations. For instance, you have a boiler. Boiler gets a little bit more technical in terms of what we do. Older houses get a little bit more technical in what we do. You can have two systems in a single family home, one in the attic, one on the first floor. No problem whatsoever with geothermal. We replace them both, connect them, and gets it up and running and everything. It saves you a ton of money.
Right. And so the big difference here is that and you've already mentioned it, but I just want to go over it once again, because I still think, even though you've said it, I don't know if everyone understood it, because I'm telling you, it's difficult for some people, because I've tried to explain this to clients. Mm-hmm. So the big difference, once again, is the lines that you're running outside of the home that are underground. So this is going to require some level of excavation. Mm-hmm. And so how large, say a traditional 2,500 square foot detached, like a standard issue colonial?
Sure.
So how large of a space are we talking about outside?
Yeah, so and I'm going to try and start from, a larger view. There's three main steps in geothermal.
Okay.
It is the piping in the ground itself, and then it is the trenching into the house itself, usually in a basement, and then it is the units themselves, the geothermal heat pumps. Now, the outside, the piping in the ground, there's there's three ways of doing it, but the two main ways are vertical. You drill down just like a water well. We're not looking for water. We're prepared for all that. It's usually either mud rotary, which is water, or it's rock.
And how far down on average do we go?
We go about 160 feet per ton. Okay. It's 1.25 inches. It's polyethylene piping. It has a 50-year warranty. It's rated for 120 years. I always joke it'll outlive all of us. It's down there. Yeah. So vertical is probably about 80% of what we do, because people do not have the space for horizontal. I'll get to horizontal in just a second, but what we do with that vertical is we put something called a bentonite grout, and this is getting a little technical. It hardens around the pipe, it protects the pipe, it acts as a conductor as well, helping with that heat exchange in the ground. So that's vertical. Horizontal, you need a lot more space. I usually say the house you described, 2,500 square feet, you probably need about half a football field. We're doing 1 trench per ton, which tonnage is how we rate these units. So for example, you could have a 4-ton heat pump that does your whole house. So you need 4 trenches spaced out a certain amount of feet, 8 to 10 feet. They're 4 feet deep. The benefit, it's less expensive because you don't need to bring out a well driller. The disadvantage is it takes up a lot of space. And then from there, that's where you do the trenching into the home itself. So either way, vertical or horizontal, you still have to bring it into the house, and then you still have to do the units inside.
But once again, after you're done, you've done the trenching, you've laid all the pipe that you have to lay, the dirt goes on top, it's going to be resodded or however they want to landscape. Exactly. So in a year, let's call it, when Mother Nature does its thing, the average person's not going to see anything.
100%. We clean everything up. We bring back to what we call a rough grade. It's ready for seeding and straw. We don't do that, but that is, it's recommended. Each property is different. Some come back pretty fast. Some you can put effort into it. We do recommend that you let it sit at least a couple weeks minimum, because if you go out and I've seen it before, you try to do it right away, sod, things will start to get a little funky, so we just say let it settle, and that's kind of how we leave it, to just with weather and everything that happens.
Got it. Okay, and so how long a project are we talking about?
Sure. That's the interesting, because geothermal, I always tell people, I hate saying the word floating schedule, but there's so many things that we're dependent on. First thing, and I'm gonna come from a vertical perspective because that is the majority of what we do.
Okay.
We have to get the permit for well drilling. Each county is different. Some counties it's a month and a half. Other counties, Baltimore County, giving examples, pretty quick, usually a week or two. Once the drilling is done, they're usually 1 to 2 days. Then we get on the trenching schedule. That's when we come in and we do the trench. It's usually 1 to 2 days. And then I usually say 3 to 7 days for each unit inside, depending. Just depends on what's going on with the ductwork. So the whole process over a timeline can be roughly a month and a half to 3 months.
Right.
Just depends on where scheduling is with certain things and counties.
Got it. And so about a month and a half, let's call it 2 months, whatever. So that makes sense. And so this is not inexpensive. So when I think about my options, it's simple math. And I think when energy costs were lower, maybe there would be less demand for something like this, because even townhomes that I sell, they used to be $100, $125, let's call it, in energy a month.
Yeah.
The average townhome now is over $300 a month. And that's a townhome. And so then when you get in with some of these larger homes, you're talking anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a month. And then some of yet the more challenging homes like mine are well over $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And so I think the need and the questions related to geothermal as the viable option is going to come up. And so the math most people are going to want to have is to say, okay, give me an idea of the hard cost. And this gets complicated, guys, because there are various incentives, or there's tax rebates, and it's changing, of course. Administrations do change. They often will change then the incentives that will change all the financials about what we're about to discuss.
Correct.
But let's ignore the incentives just for a moment. What is, once again, not your most challenging home, like your standard 2,500 square foot house? Like what's a realistic bill?
Sure.
Give me a range.
Sure. And in terms, are you talking about the energy bill?
No. Well, we can do both, but I think most
people
people are going to first off want to know, okay, they know what their current bills are. I think, and that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Give me an idea what this might cost me.
Sure.
Because I have to do the math as to how many years it's going to take to recoup this.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it depends, horizontal, vertical. I usually like to give those two. So you can be looking anywhere from 35,000 to as high as maybe 55,000. I know that's a large range, but there is a big difference in terms of horizontal versus vertical.
Okay.
It also depends, obviously, on the tonnage. The more tonnage, the more expensive it becomes. And that's just because well driller charges by the foot. You have to do more footage for the bigger the house. So, but average, I would say, is probably in that $45,000 range if I had to put one number on it.
Okay.
And again, that we'll go into the other things that makes it viable compared to if you're looking at a conventional system, replacing what you have like with like. You can already be in the $15,000 to $20,000 range right there.
Right.
And once you talk about the incentives, that's why people say, oh, it makes more sense for me to do geothermal than conventional.
Well, and I think if given the option, if there are two very similar priced options, one of them is more green, let's call it. Like if you're an electric vehicle fan, I think electric vehicles aren't going to be mainstream for everyone. Even though most of us want to be good, to the environment, it comes back to cost. And if it's triple the price, it's going to be challenging for most people to adopt.
Yep.
But in your situation, if it's $45,000, I know there's incentives. What's our current incentives? Not in the future. Let's just say today, and we're recording in September 2025. So give me a snapshot in time of what our current incentives would be like.
Let's just freeze this time period. That would be great for me.
Yes.
So first off, you get the 30% federal rebate. That's not based on income, not based on anything. It is a flat rebate right back on your taxes off of my bill.
So it's close to $15,000 right there.
Correct.
For most people.
Yep. Forgive me, there is no state grant right now. That just went away. County credits, pretty much the majority of counties in the state of Maryland have a county credit. For instance, Baltimore County has a $5,000 property tax credit. It usually does not pay out in the first year. It's $2,500 the following and $2,500 the next year.
Okay.
BG&E, for all the things they're doing to us right now, the utility rebate is different depending on the system you have. A conventional heat pump, you're going to get $3,000 for that. If you have any sort of fossil fuel, you are going to get...
You mean your current, what you're replacing?
Forgive me. Yes, your current one. Yes, thanks, Matt. So your current system, if it's any fossil fuel, you get $7,000 for that. And then they're going to give you an additional $3,000 for what they call an electrification credit. And that is basically to give you some money in case you have to upgrade your electric panel. Now, 9 out of 10 of my customers do not have to upgrade the electric panel, but you still get that credit anyway. So the utility credit, roughly anywhere from $3,000 to $10,000, the 30%, the county credit, those are what we call the initial credits. Usually they're in the first year. And that's when we talk about that $45,000. Well, we could be already down into the $20,000, below $20,000 range just in the first year.
And to me, if you're listening, like that is a remarkable difference because a traditional, even the cheapest HVAC guy you can find is going to cost well over $10,000 typically to replace the system.
Yep.
And it could certainly be more than that, especially if you get a brand name that's, adds a little badging premium to it and so forth. And Lord, God help you if you actually call someone that advertises anywhere because you're going to pay an extra 30% for that. So it could be $15,000 plus compared to maybe something that you might offer after the first year that's maybe $20,000.
Correct.
And so I think that alone, if we had a soundbite, that alone makes it a lot more agreeable or digestible compared to what 100%. I'm telling you. A lot of people just assume this isn't an option. It's so expensive. Well, it could be, but also someone's got to have the money up front. So what if I don't have $45,000 in my bank account?
Sure. Yeah, we have financing, options available. We have a lot of people, we do it 12 months, same as cash, 1 year, 0%. We also have another program, no payments for 6 months, 5, 10, 15-year loan program. When you break it down, the majority of my customers, when you're looking at numbers, the number after the initial rebates on the geothermal compared to a conventional quote, it is right there. There's maybe a couple $1,000 difference, but it is right there. And then if we progress and we talk about down the road, energy savings, yes, we're not even talking about them. The other rebate we have, and Maryland has the rebate, it's renewable energy credits, which a lot of people are going to hear that. They're going to think solar. 100% correct. It's been around for solar for years and years. It came through for geothermal at the beginning of 2023. This is money you're going to get the lifespan of the unit. And there's a formula that, it's based off of square footage and what you currently have for heating and hot water going to a geothermal system that you are going to get money every quarter, every year to help pay for the system. And the majority of my customers, the payback period is usually 5 years or less. It just varies. A guy who has an oil furnace that's using $5,000 a year in oil, well, shoot, go over 3 years and that's saving you $15,000 right there. Right. So there's a lot more you can get into, and I'm not trying to overwhelm people with all this, but
what's a traditional credit? I know I like to do averages, which kind of stinks, but I always like to know,
No, if we go for your 2,500 square foot house and you're talking about, let's just say it's a gas furnace, any fossil fuel, you're going to get a bigger payout on the renewable energy credits. We're getting roughly about $90 per one. That house is probably going to generate in the neighborhood of 40 to 50. So you're looking at an additional probably $3 to $4 grand a year. That first year. over the years, that number is going to drop. It's not dropping from $90 to like $20 per one renewable energy credit, but it will drop slowly over time. So I have a projection I give you 10 years of what we anticipate we think you're going to get over that time period.
And so for a general home, if it's $4,000 the first year, what do you project in 10 years should I get back in renewable credits?
That's
you just give me an estimate.
I should have done some.
You know, I was grilling you, didn't I?
Yeah, that's probably going to be roughly like 20 to 25K over a 10-year period. So if my system after the first year rebates cost me roughly 20, and I'm getting 25,000 over 10 years, if I stay there for 10 years, first off, are those credits transferable to the next owner in case I sell? Yeah, great question.
Wow,
yes,
lovely.
they are.
So it could be a net zero or maybe a net positive in terms of just the hard costs, not the energy savings.
You got it. I love where you went with that because we're not even talking about energy savings yet. This is just rebates.
This is it. When you start doing the math, it's pretty remarkable. And if I could get 0% financing for a year to give me the opportunity to get all these incentives and to save on my taxes, then I could either pay off or pay dramatically down the cost of the system.
Yep.
Before I have to do anything related to financing or
100% correct. And we help you with all that. We help you with all the rebates. You know, Caitlin in my office sends you a rebate package, hard copy, digital copy. Any questions you have, we just walk you through all of it.
This sounds like I'm doing an infomercial for you, but I promise you people I'm not. Like, it's actually mesmerizing because this is the first time I've done the math. And it's just, I consistently hear it's too darn expensive. I'm not doing it. And it's the number of times people even consider it as an option. It's so infrequently, at least in my world. I know this is all you do. You do 13 sales calls a day, but it's just not something that I typically hear.
Yeah.
It's almost like a luxury item. The homes that I've sold that have this are traditionally much more expensive than others.
Yeah. And that's... There was about a few years ago, I felt it. There was more of a transition in the industry where I think it was a feeling of, it's an upscale item. That has stopped dramatically over the last few years. And I think part of that is energy costs, but part of that is education. You know, people realizing, wait, I can afford this. This isn't, yes, it's expensive, but it's not, compared to a conventional system, it's not. And when you break down the numbers, you just have to break them down and have somebody explain it to you, like myself.
Right.
Sometimes I do an okay job, other times.
You're doing
maybe
all
not.
right. You're doing all right now. But I mean, let's get into real quick just some of the costs. So the average detached single family 2,500 square foot house is going to be $300 plus, maybe $500 in that range during the winter for sure. And some people freak out when I tell them these numbers if they've lived in a townhouse or an apartment and they're buying their first, I call it like their big boy home.
Sure.
And it's you have to budget. Like the last thing I want to do is get someone inside of a home as a realtor and then they look at their monthly expenses and go, what is happening?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You have to, you got to pay to have the grass cut if you're not cutting it. Like, what's Oprah say? If you don't have a maid, you are the maid.
Yeah.
You gotta, you have to do the math here. But if your bills are more expensive, you could save at least $100, $200, $300 a month conservatively, especially during your high energy use months.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, like we said, it's anywhere from 50 to 80%. The cooling bill drops dramatically. I like to say it's the best form of air conditioning on the planet. If that, water temperature in the ground is 55, typically coming out of your vents is around 45. The heat pump's not doing that much work to begin with. So it really in the summertime, the wintertime, yes. And it just depends on what you are because there's more variables in winter, all the different types of fuel you can use for that and electric heat.
Do most people understand the concept that the temperature underneath the ground at a certain level is a constant, steady temperature, or do most people not know that?
It's funny, Matt. The majority of people, when I first started this years ago, I thought that was going to be, I really got to get into all the science behind this. And no, people are just kind of, I guess the research, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Once you get below the frost line, you're kind of right there. It's not like we live in a volatile area.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's actually not the big question. It's usually kind of the stuff we're talking about, energy savings. How does this work? What's it go? Right. Like I said, I'd say almost 50% of my job is just managing expectations of how the project goes.
Right.
Because there's just a lot of moving parts.
Well, if nothing else, and I have more questions, but if nothing else, if you get nothing else, if you're in need of a replacement, you should at least consider it and have a proper conversation and do the math because I think I think most people are just very quick to replace it when it's broken. And I'll be honest, most of it happens, and I get calls constantly because I encourage it from my clients. Like, bug me because I can give you a point of contact at one of my, general contractors or specialists, and I like to refer out because that makes, I believe, better value for the client, because if I'm important as a referral partner, they, in theory, should take better care of my clients.
Absolutely.
And I believe that to be true. I'm like, yes, I'm going to connect you properly because there is value to you, because they're not going to rip you off because that, I'm not going to, because if I hear about it, it's all over.
Oh, yeah.
Referral's over.
And like we said, how we met, and it's one of those ones I preface, I'm like, I'm not trying to be negative. If this was my house, this is not the best option for you. So we're going to be honest with you. And, even I know new construction, we just talked about it briefly before we started. It's great for new construction too, because you never have to worry about that and that bill, that you're going to get from oil, gas, a conventional heat pump. And the other thing is these inside, the inside units themselves, they rate them 25 to 35 years, which is usually about double the lifespan of any kind of conventional system.
And is that, because you did mention that to me, and I thought that was an interesting point to have. So explain that in more detail. So when you install a geothermal system, so yes, the piping you already said is rated for at least 50 years, but you said is it warranted for 50 years?
Warranted for 50 years,
but it's up to 120.
It should outlive all of us.
Right. But that's in the dirt. So, but the actual units themselves, you say they're inside, correct? There's absolutely no heat pump. There's nothing outside, correct?
Yep, exactly.
So it's not exposed to the elements.
You answered your own question. That's exactly what it is. And if the ground's doing the majority of the work for the heat pump itself, the heat pump's working less. There's things, variable speed compressors, fans, things like that help out with that. But that's what makes the big difference. There's no outside wear and tear. It's not working as hard.
Right.
The ground's doing all the work, and it's just water moving through a pipe.
That's all it is.
That's all it is.
Interesting. You don't put chemicals inside that water? You don't?
Yeah, there's what we do is we bring out our own, what we call loop mix, because it's, you have the ground loop. That's our name, obviously, but that's what it's called. So it's deionized water. It's clean water. There is an antifreeze mixture in there, but that's it. The reason we use deionized water, we can't use your city or well water because it'll contaminate.
It doesn't eveporate over time?
No. It's once it's in there, it's in there. We also have monitoring capabilities where it's not like we're putting it out there and then being like, well, we hope, we'll be able to monitor everything, airflow, water pressure, temperature, things like that, so we can see if there's an issue.
Is there additional maintenance? Do I have to have someone out here every 6 months, every year? What's a traditional, maintenance schedule look like?
Great question. We give you two for free in the first year, just to see what that looks like. But it's really just the conventional maintenance. It still has a refrigeration cycle. It still has a fan. It still has the electronic board and everything. Yes, there's a pump, but all that stuff is monitored. Usually we don't have to mess with that. So it's usually 2 visits a year if that's what you want. You don't have to do it. You can see a lot of cool things on your phone, that you wouldn't be able to see with a conventional system.
So once again, if you have a traditional system at home, it probably shocks no one, but it did me, at least in the beginning. Guess the number of average visits most people have in terms of having an HVAC professional come into the home. This is just anecdotal, but
I could not imagine some people when I go out there and they're like, but they know their system's on their last leg. They're like, we've had the guy out, 6 times this year for put in more refrigerant or check this, check that.
Well, that's when there's an issue.
Yes.
I think on average, maybe I'm wrong. This is what I hear from my sellers when I sell the home. It's 0.
Yes.
On average, it's 0. That's what I would like to say until there's an issue. Yes. I don't have heat. And I think that this is a problem. If I had to create a business and I was going to be Ground Loop's competitor and I was going to have to go against you guys, the challenge is all this math and all this stuff sounds fabulous, right? It's all good in its, theoretically.
Correct. Yep.
But usually these things fail, my clients, and I get the call. It's when it's 103 degrees outside and they have a baby at home, or they have this, or someone's traveling and I'm here watching the kid. It's always an issue.
Yeah.
And they need to replace it today. And the easiest thing to do is just to swap out what's there.
Yep.
And I think that the issue or the challenge for many people is if it ain't broke, I'm not fixing it.
Yep.
Yeah, we all have bills. We have everyone's got issues. And so I'm just in my mind, it's like, it was a good step even for me to get you out there. I'm like, hey, it's not broken and I'm talking to you.
That's proactive is better than reactive. That's one of the things I've said in the remodeling industry for forever. It's difficult. I talk about this stuff like it's exciting. It is for me, but I know it's HVAC. It's not fun, but if you do have questions and you want to bring us out, our service department is second to none. I can't tell you how many leads they get me because they go out and it's not just conventional. It's geothermal from 20 years ago. And we go out there and we're like, we don't know how they did this system, but we'll fix it for you if that's what needs to happen, Sure. And so the service is a big portion of it, but part of the best thing about Water Furnace, which is the brand of heat pump we use, and they're the best in the country. Highly recommend.
Say that again. Water Furnace.
Okay. Yeah, is the brand. They're out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. Even if you don't use me as a company, make sure you put in a Water Furnace. That's what I always tell everybody. But the big thing is they're designed and they have this system for monitoring where Scott Coleman, one of the owners and my service manager, if Matt's having an issue, you can call him up and he can look at everything on your system and pretty much diagnose it right there. Oh, it's just this, it's just that. It's a sensor we need to dust off that's, lighten up. It's very simple for the most part. That's the brilliance of the geothermal system.
Got it. So, that's all. It all sounds good. I think the reality is the higher this goes, it's almost like gas prices. I'm into EVs and all that. So it's like the idea that when gas gets cheap, the demand for electric vehicles go down. And conversely, when gas prices go up, then everyone's aware because you go to the gas pump and you're like, oh my God, you're staring at it go up and up and up. And so I feel that in a weird way, when we have higher energy prices, this is the greener part of this discussion.
Yeah.
This is going to help in that regard because heat pumps in general are more efficient, just in general, not even your product, just in general.
Correct.
And there's limitations to them though, that historically, people have occasionally thought of them as lesser than let's say a gas-fired furnace, or not so much oil anymore. People are kind of doing away with that.
Yeah.
But how do you combat that? Is this a lesser system in terms of, if it really gets cold, am I going to have an issue? If we have several days and it's 10 degrees outside?
Yeah, it's a great question. So is gas oil a better heat? Yes and no, depending on how you look at it. I always say when you have those radiators and things, which obviously about, it's a crispier, hotter air.
And I will say there's nothing better. Yeah,
hey, they're great.
I would never build a home and put them in there just personally, but if you've ever had that old school radio, we have the classic, it's just they're heavy duty.
And the brilliance of that, like we talked about, you can put in a geothermal system and leave that as a backup and you still get everything involved.
Well, and that's what I was trying to bring up is that I thought that was a great idea, is that you can add the fancy new system that's super efficient, that 90%, 95% of the time, that's what you use.
Yep.
But in the worst case scenarios, if you have a backup.
Exactly. I think I used this example specifically, but we finished a house off of Roland Avenue, large house, 4,200 square feet, didn't have any ductwork whatsoever in the house. They just have one big boiler, so no air condition. Went in there, talked to them we're happy to do this, do new ductwork and everything, 2 geothermal systems, but you cannot get rid of this boiler. He said, why? I said, because this house is from 1900. Nothing's been updated. There's no insulation in the walls. So when I tell people that it worries them about geothermal, and I want to be very clear, it is not a geothermal problem. It's a housing problem. And that's things you can address.
Construction problem.
Exactly. Construction
Materials,
problem.
Yeah, insulation.
Exactly. And that's something you can rip out the boiler and put it in a conventional heat pump.
Right.
You're going to have the same issues. It's not going to be able to heat.
In certain homes, especially historic homes, they're challenging because you can't really replace windows the same way. Exactly. Insulation's challenging. There's crawl space issues. I can't even access portions of my home.
You did a great job with your insulation.
I tried. He was impressed. But it was because I'm not kidding you. When I first moved into my home, it was in the low 40s inside certain rooms. Of my office was in the 40s.
Yeah.
I walked in, my breath, I could see my breath. I go, this isn't right.
Yep.
And so we did everything. It's better, but it's still not great.
Yeah.
And, I'm always looking for ways, but the reality is 95% of folks can get the benefit from this. And I'm a friend, I'm an edge case, but there's always that.
Yeah. And there's some, the geothermal system comes with a backup electric heat setting on it. The difference between the backup electric heat on an air source heat pump versus a geothermal is you're based on outside air temperature on that air source. So most air source heat pumps, that backup electric heat typically comes on when it's below 40 or 30. Exactly. Emergency heat, auxiliary heat. A lot of thermostats will call it something different. And that makes the bill skyrocket. My system, you should never run on backup electric heat because everything is inside. It's not running off of outside temperature. It's constantly pulling from that 50 to 60 degrees. So it doesn't have to use that extra
So in
heat.
a more modern home, something that's not 100 years old, so a relatively modern home, this is not a concern they should have.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. If you're like, I had a couple appointments. They had a gas furnace. They asked them, like, this is a 2007 built house. You will have no problem,
Got it.
whatsoever. And the backup electric heat is there in case of emergency, but you should never use it.
So now, do you ever install these systems in, let's say, a row house or a townhouse, or is there enough space for a traditional? I mean, we live in Baltimore. It's like the home of row homes. Everyone that's not from here, they come in, they're like, what are all these things?
I'm one of those.
Yeah, it's like these don't exist, but they do on the East Coast.
Yep.
And so the density is a real thing that we've adapted to. So if I just have a little teeny patch of grass in my backyard, you're saying I could have a vertical installation?
Yes. And obviously there's a few outliers, things we got to look for. So starting with where does the water, if you have gas, where does electric, where does sewer come in? If all those things are out of the way, we can make it happen. There's something we do called a twister loop, where it is a designed pipe that is made that way to get more piping in just one hole. And we do those a fair amount in smaller areas like that.
Got it.
It's just as efficient, same thing. It's just the way the piping is designed.
Really? That's fascinating. So do you anticipate, when you're sitting there in the meetings with the company at Ground Loop, do you guys anticipate demand to go up, or do you think because, and I briefly mentioned this because the administration changed and they're basically cutting a lot of these credits. They want everybody to kind of fend for themselves. And so I can see both sides of that, by the way. So there are tremendous number of rebates and credits on things that probably don't need it. I mentioned EVs. I do not believe they need an EV credit. It's like giving you a credit from the government to get an iPhone.
Yeah.
It's like, guess what? You're going to get that damn iPhone when yours breaks. Like, chances are you're buying one. So like a smartphone, even not an iPhone, like any smartphone, you don't need to be incentivized to buy that because you need it nowadays. And so I think eventually everyone's going to have to convert to that at some point. So do we anticipate that having a dramatic effect? Because when you've mentioned all the rebates, I just added them up. I mean, it's large. What is that? That's going to be like $30,000 in rebates.
Yeah, it pays for itself with the renewable energy credits. So the one that's going away, and it's been positive most of the year, the utility rebates have gone up. It was just $3,000 for any system. Now with those fossil fuels, it's $7,000. County rebates have come back. Like Howard County just got a $5,000 one. So the state of Maryland is very good for geothermal because those are all state rebates. Okay. Utility, and that's utility company, but it's the statewide rebate. And then the county rebates and then the renewable energy credits are all statewide.
Okay, so
that's important to know.
Got it.
And I probably should have started with that. The 30% federal rebate, that's the one that's going away at the end of the year. That was on the big, beautiful bill, and I 100% agree with you. Some things need rebates, some things don't. That we are doing something currently to kind of try to hedge our bets with that, where we will buy your renewable energy credits up front.
Oh, okay.
And that is basically...
So you're going to get the reoccurring payment, the coupon payment, and then you're going to go ahead and give it off. That's an interesting...
And it's just a way of saying, look, some people we meet with, and we talked about this a little earlier, they're not hard pressed for money. They're like, I want the system. I want
just
lower
write
bills.
The check and whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, well, then you guys take your renewable energy credits as they come in. Then there's other people who are like, that 30% going away hurt us. Okay, well, let's help you out some way and buy them up front. So the 30% going away, last time it went away was like 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was only 22%. It came back 6 months later. I don't anticipate it this time to come back 6 months later.
It's not.
But this is how, before the renewable energy credits came through in 2023, how I would pitch this is you have the 30%, you have all the other rebates, and then you just sold on energy savings, which that's what it is. That's the majority of the reason people are doing it. They're not doing it because you get all these rebates. They're doing it because they want to lower their monthly bills.
Sure.
So now we're just kind of replacing that 30% by buying your renewable energy credits up front, and then we can talk about the lower energy bills.
Now, if I was building a brand new home, I would be considering solar. Depends on the situation. But what if I wanted to go in and put a whole solar array on top of my home, maybe a Tesla roof or something, if I really wanted to get crazy with it?
Sure.
And I would consider doing a battery pack, if not 3, in there. So they have battery pack options now that really can keep it so when the sun's not shining, cloudy day, or in the evening, you're still pulling from from the energy in which you created.
Okay.
So I'm trying to create a net zero home essentially.
Yeah.
And I'm using geothermal to do an electric heat pump that you've installed. So can I heat and cool my system through the process I just mentioned and literally not have an additional bill?
Oh yeah, I have people all the time that I go out to, and they're like, "We just want to be a zero house," and I was like, "I get it." So
yeah,
and it varies. You know, I've gone out where they're like, "We're between doing solar or geothermal first." Right. Just how I am with you. You know, I'm like, "Look, you're on an electric heat pump. Maybe you want to do solar first. If it's only 5-10 years old, you might get a few more years. You're on oil. Get the oil out of your house and do geothermal first, and then do solar." So it's again, I don't pretend to be a solar expert. I could just go off of somewhat knowledge and what people tell me, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think the idea of being self-sufficient is attractive to a lot of people. And I think more and more so, just everyone, I mean, I think we're more nervous in general as a society. It's how it feels. Yeah. Right? Every news headline's horrible. So it's like the idea, that you can be somewhat in control of your energy system and heating and cool. It's like the more off the grid you can be within reason, I think people are, I don't know, more open to that notion.
Absolutely.
And this presents an idea that could actually create that as a path.
Yeah.
And so getting back to the real estate side of things, how do you coach people through it? And I want to give you my opinion, but how do you coach people when they try to say, okay, I'm about to do this investment.
Yeah.
Am I going to increase my home's value in any meaningful way? How would you describe that to them?
Yeah, so that's funny.
Put you on the hot seat there.
I had a couple questions for you coming into this, and I figured that'd be a good back and forth because I run into this a good amount. You know, people, first off, if I walk in there and people are talking about resale value a lot for the house, I'm going to start to have some questions. Well, are you guys planning on leaving in 2 years? Oh, yeah. Well, then why are you doing a geothermal system? You know, you shouldn't. Resale value, the big thing I talk about, and you might know this better than I kind of use an example of 10 people walk into your house, maybe 3 people know what geothermal is.
Right.
One of them really knows what it is.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I just don't think people know about it. One of my best friends from college, he lives up in Philly. I think we were talking about this, and he just bought a nice house up there, and he's like, wait, don't you do this? And he took pictures, and he had a geothermal system. He's like, tell me what I need to know. I was like, you don't really need to know anything. Your bills are just going to be lower than what you ever knew, but you're moving in with that. It's not like you're going from something, you know, besides your previous home. So that was kind of my question for you is how do you handle that when you walk in, like you tell people, hey, a geothermal system, are they just like, we don't care? Oh,
I love it, guys. You notice he didn't answer that question at all. You're going to be a politician yet. No. My goodness. That's how it's done, folks. So what I would say is it's a nicety. I believe it's a plus. I think it's better. I would much prefer this over traditional, as green as I'd like to say I am. Solar is a harder sell. So when people are considering solar for their home, as a real estate agent, to be honest, it's not a plus. On average, it's a negative. Okay. And I hate to say that out loud. So if someone's on the fence, to be honest, it's a negative because on average, people are leasing these things. Yeah. They have a traditional 20-year lease. You're 5 to 10 years in it, and now you want to sell. And your system is 5 to 10 years on average because most people don't install these things and 6 months later sell. Yep. It's normally my intention is in the foreseeable long term, I'm here. So the systems are usually a little uglier, a little older. They're not as thin. They're not as elegant because they get better with time. And still in 5 or 10 years, it'll be true of what we're installing today. So it doesn't look great most of the time. And so nobody really wants that thing on top of the roof. And there's always one person, if it's normally a couple, let's say that's buying, one of them doesn't like it at all. And the other one can deal with it. And then we try to sell them on, oh, look at the energy savings. And they're trying to do math they don't understand. They have to apply typically to also get approved for that additional debt obligation. Okay. Which is a whole nother set of problems. Yeah. And so on average, no one's going to give you $5 more for your home because you have solar. However, I believe what you're offering with like ground loop and the ability to have lower energy bills and you don't stare at it and you have a system that is likely to have less maintenance, likely to have less wear and tear, and likely to outlive whoever is about to purchase it. The combination, and you don't have to deal with the install. Yeah. It's like dealing with looking at your backyard destroyed potentially, or, just dealing with the headache of all this. Sure. It's all done for you. And you just, instead of spending $500 a month, now you're going to have $250 a month or $200 a month. I believe that to be a actual value. And now the challenge is, how do you correlate that to a dollar figure?
Yeah.
That's challenging. I mean, it's challenging to determine your kitchen renovation, your bathroom renovation. Those are two no-brainers. But adding a pool, my brother owns Rhine Pools. It's one of the largest pool companies in the whole state of Maryland.
Yeah.
He doesn't lie to people. I know his spiel. He doesn't say install this because you want to make more money on the resale. Because about 50% of people that have a pool in the backyard, or I'm sorry, about 50% don't want a pool in your backyard.
Yeah.
It's roughly the statistic I always read. So that means you've eliminated half your buyers.
Yeah.
But half of them might want it so much that they're going to buy it because of that. Isn't that a weird? It's like there's not a clear answer on all of this.
To your point, that's kind of what I say when people ask me that question and they're just like down the road. I'm like, that's a better question for a realtor. I was like, I can't tell you that. I'm selling it to you based on your needs.
My answer would be, if you're going to gain value in it and you anticipate living there at least 5 years, pull the trigger and do it.
Yeah.
I think that makes all the sense 100%. In the world. And for the right buyer, they're going to appreciate it and potentially offer you a little bit more.
Yeah.
If it comes down to it.
And also I've told them before, if you're selling your house, you probably don't like this, but I'm like, get involved a little. Sell them on the geothermal system if you like it.
Sell your realtor. That's the key, because I don't think most realtors, because I just told you, I love to say occasionally how ignorant I am, but I've sold these systems before, and I only had a very, cursory knowledge of this stuff. I did not deep dive in it until, quite frankly, I needed to consider it. That's just facts. We have so many things to research, and I knew enough. But now I feel like I have enough knowledge. I think anyone listening to this, especially if you're a real estate agent, you should be able to hopefully explain this in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
use me. I'm always a phone call away. Like,
well, there you go.
It's you've been great, and this is a good experience for everybody to get involved. And it's not for everybody, but I think there is there's a connection here between realtors and this type of system. You guys see so many different systems, and getting a little bit more knowledge on it never hurts.
No, I don't think it hurts. And I think the real public service announcement here is that if you've never considered this, I think the time to get the understanding, it costs nothing to have you out to get the knowledge of what the real numbers look like for your home. So come on out, drag Justin out to your house and have him explain this to you. Look at the systems. And if you're like me, he'll tell you he doesn't want to work on it. And if he wants your business, he'll tell you. But the point is, do that now before it's 100 degrees outside and you have no time to do research or, and you book up. It's not like you guys can do 30 of these a day, right?
Yeah. And to your point, you mentioned this earlier about kind of like, out of sight, out of mind. And then if something goes wrong and you have to replace with geothermal, we can't really do that. We can't come out and just...
You don't get air conditioning next day or 2 days from now. No.
Water there's something they've done. It's called Geo Ready, but it's still, if you don't have air conditioning, it's still going to be like a 2-week wait period where we kind of... I'm not going to get into that right now because we just don't do a ton of it because it's not. I don't think it's a very viable solution. But that if you think your air conditioning was working really hard, this summer, and you're like, have us out now. If you think your heating was really on its last leg, have us out now. Things like that. Just spring and fall are always good.
Yeah, of course. So I think I beat you up pretty good. I mean, is there anything you think we need to make mention that I haven't hit on?
I'm trying to think. No, we hit on a lot of this stuff. I mean, I literally approached this as if I was going into a house. Yeah. And ours was a little bit all over the place when we first met because the system was a little bit all over the place.
It is. Yes.
No one's fault. It just is what it is. So I approached it kind of like, how I would go into a house. Again, my main job is managing expectations of what's going to happen.
Right.
And I'm very visual. I walk around the house with you. I'm going to explain where I think things are going to go. How it's going to, happen, what can happen inside the house. I want to go over every little detail so you're prepared. And to be clear, even though this is a 1.5 to 3 month process, I don't expect customers to remember everything through those months. So we come out again when we're about to do installs and drill and just kind of go over it one more time before we actually do it. So you were great. You were easy on the questions. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm passionate about it. Like I am going to be helping to kind of push your company and in this idea because I think it could serve more people than it is. And I think there's a lack of knowledge and the expense seems overwhelming. I don't think that sounds unreasonable. It sounds like there's a path forward for almost everybody. As long as you, I mean, if you're building from scratch, I think this is an absolute no-brainer. Like, don't even think about it. And if you need to retrofit an existing system, you should at a minimum get a quote.
Yep.
And that's like, I think that's the minimum. And then if you plan to live there at least 5 years, I think the math from everything we've discussed and the notes I've taken, after that 5-year holding period, it's once again almost a no-brainer. Like even if it doesn't increase resale by a nickel, like, does that make sense? Like,
100%. And it's not like I'm just saying these numbers and then I'm like, all right, make a decision. There's a detailed proposal of everything where you see, after these 10 years of renewable energy credits and all my other stuff, I'm negative $10,000, and negative in a good way. I've gained that. And again, that's not counting your energy savings. So it's all broken down on the proposal.
Or the reality that you're no longer using. My home is got to be the worst thing in the world. The amount of gas that my home goes through, the needle just goes, it never stops. And I'm like, man, I wish I just from a consumption standpoint, I feel horrible.
You're the type of...
and we set our thermostat down so pathetically low. Like, you bring a coat if you come over. Like, it's not good.
I mean, you're the type of homeowner, I walk out of there feeling bad because I just did it last week, right off of Charles Street. I was like, you have 3 systems and none of them connect, and they're all over the place.
Well, we're in Baltimore, so this region has older homes, and usually there's additions. And so I always say, if I want to wake up and have a cup of coffee in my kitchen, I have to have 5 systems on.
Yeah.
And that's not a joke. It's like nothing makes sense. So, but I think for the vast majority of people, expect, like I said, that you're going to encounter, this will make sense for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And by the way, your house is beautiful, by the way.
Yeah.
It's an awesome house. The only other thing I did just pop into my mind a couple minutes ago is just, and I don't want to go down this road because it might not be in your guys' wheelhouse, but commercially as well. The 30% will still be there for commercial. Okay. So if you have customers that are in that business, and all those things, so commercial real estate, stuff like that, there's a lot of people doing geothermal with that as well.
Neat. Yeah. So I think that less or so what I'll deal with, but that's good to know.
Yeah. Just throwing it out there in the world, see what happens.
Well, there you go. Well, Justin, I appreciate you joining me, and everybody. Ground Loop Heating and Air. And this is Justin Coleman. He can come and answer your specific questions. I appreciate you joining. I'm going to have all your contact information on in here, and hopefully a few people were able to listen, and someone can, act on this knowledge, hopefully, and do something good for the environment and do something good for their pocketbook.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Matt. It was great.
All right. Thank you.